Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa. With me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the UN Security Council's MINUSMA mission in Mali will be extended for another year, but peacekeepers could face greater risk in an already high-stakes operation as they'll be tackling the ongoing security crisis without air support from the French. Also, striking nurses in Zimbabwe are holding out for a better deal from the government and say that they'll stay away unless they're offered a pay rise that substantially offsets the crisis caused by the country's tanking currency and soaring inflation. And Cairo's floating homes are about to go under. People living in the quaint houseboats that have long lined the Nile have been suddenly told to pack up and leave after authorities refused to renew licenses. The decision is devastating for the inhabitants of the heritage of the city. But first, the UN Security Council's voted to renew the mandate of its peacekeeping force in Mali, despite the loss of air support from France. MINUSMA's been operating in the crisis-hit country since 2013, and now will stay put for at least another year. It's already the UNSC's deadliest operation. The Malian government has already said that it will not abide by one element of the new resolution, a demand that it allow free movement for MINUSMA forces in the country. It also says that the UN has no business leading investigations into human rights abuses in Mali. Our regional correspondent Sam Bradpeace talks us through.
The decision to renew MINUSMA comes in spite of a growing wave of human rights violations committed by Malian armed forces and Russian mercenaries. Ultimately, the consensus, though, was that Mali still needs MINUSMA. The resolution calls on the junta to allow the free movement of MINUSMA personnel within Mali, and it also calls for those abuses, for those violations to stop. Now, the Malian government has previously said that it wants France to stop providing air support to MINUSMA. This will greatly reduce the capacity of the 15,000-strong peacekeeping operation. Earlier in the week, the Malian government also made a key announcement. It said that it would hold a vote, a referendum on the new constitution in 2023 and a presidential election in 2024.
Well, rival Libyan leaders were in Geneva on Wednesday at UN-brokered talks aimed at organising elections. Meanwhile, the US ambassador to Libya was in Tripoli on a rare visit. Richard Norland is usually based in Tunisia because of the ongoing instability in Libya. He's warned warring political factions there against using national oil wealth as a weapon. Libya's resources are more precious than ever in light of the global energy crunch, but only if oil blockades by eastern factions are lifted. Kenny Nedlek tells us more.
Really a pleasure to be back in Tripoli.
As the price of oil soars, the United States is looking for new supplies, and Libya has the biggest reserves in Africa. But exports are often disrupted by warring camps. Washington hopes to implement a management system to get the sector moving again, but that's yet to happen.
It's very clear to us that the current oil shutdown needs to end immediately, and that the process of managing Libyan oil revenues and getting those revenues to the benefit of the Libyan people is more important than ever.
The country is split in two, with one government led by Prime Minister Abdelhamid Dbeibeh in Tripoli in the west and another headed by Fatih Bashagha in Sirte in the east. There, blockades by local forces have shut down refineries and export terminals. And since April, 6 other facilities have also been closed by forces loyal to Bashagha. Tripoli says the stoppages by eastern leaders and their supporters are holding key Libyan resources hostage. The country's finances depend on oil revenue.
We are witnessing an energy and an electricity crisis. People are angry. Libyans are increasingly frustrated.
On Tuesday, Dbeibeh and Bashagha began talks in Geneva aimed at organising elections that could help resolve the country's political and economic crisis.
The African Union's called for a de-escalation of reportedly fatal tensions between Ethiopia and Sudan. Clashes in the disputed border area of Al-Fashaka saw Khartoum accuse the Ethiopian army of executing 7 Sudanese soldiers and a civilian. Sudan earlier had said it would recall its ambassador over their initial capture. Ethiopia has denied that its soldiers were in the area at the time. and claims that Sudanese forces crossed over into its territory. The neighbours have been at odds over Al-Fashaka for years. It's been long cultivated by Ethiopian farmers, but is claimed by Sudan. Healthcare workers in Zimbabwe headed out on strike at the end of June, demanding a tenfold increase of their wages. Unions had earlier rejected an offer from the government to double salaries. They say it doesn't go far enough as they deal with the squeeze caused by plummeting currency and soaring inflation. Strikers say that they're determined to hold out for a better offer, but the disruptions in the meantime putting lives at risk.
Patients visiting Zimbabwe's public hospitals were turned away every day last week after healthcare officials went on strike for 5 days. The government is offering them a 100% wage increase, but that won't even cover inflation that shot up to more than 130% in the country in May this year. Some of the workers are earning around €50 a month and they're demanding a tenfold increase.
We've been trying to engage our employer. It's been 14 months now. We as an association have also written letters to the permanent secretary, there's been a lot of red tape that we haven't met to discuss all these issues.
They say the hospitals where they work often lack basic medicine like paracetamol and equipment like MRI scanners. They also want their wages to be paid out in US dollars.
The government is offering $175 being paid in US dollars. So that part already, we've already shown that we are willing to make sure that part of the salary is in US dollars.
The opposition party, the Citizens Coalition for Change, says dysfunctional hospitals are the result of a complete failure of the government to implement health policies that work.
Corruption, a failure to prioritize funding of health, a failure to have experts lead the process, have public health professionals at the forefront of the health ministry. All of those things together, have contributed to this crisis.
Union leaders have warned that health workers would have no option but to strike again if the government doesn't come up with an offer closer to the €500 they demand within the next 2 weeks.
Well, in Egypt, people living in about 30 houseboats on the Nile have been given just weeks to pack up and leave. The government suddenly issued the order last week, despite the floating houses being part of Cairo's heritage. Edouard Dropsy reports.
These homes have been gutted. Others have simply been moved away. The Egyptian authorities are enforcing expulsion orders against this community that lived on the Nile. 88-year-old Ikhlas Ibrahim is packing her bags against her will.
I don't know where to put it all.
She bought this floating house in 1997 to recapture childhood memories of growing up on the Nile. But a few days ago, the government ordered everybody in homes like hers out. Now she is desperate.
Where am I supposed to go? They're throwing us into the street. Are they throwing me out onto the pavement? It's my house. It's my life. If I leave, I'll die.
All of these houses are affected. This author and respected academic returned home from the UK around 10 years ago. Having travelled the world, she finally decided to settle on the Nile.
They said that we polluted the river and that we were an affront to the civilizational aspect of the Nile. Just so strange because they are so much part of the heritage.
Jerome spent part of his childhood in this house. After studying abroad, he decided to come back and renovate it. His father still lives in Cairo.
Salut papa, ça va?
Ça va mon grand. Ça va? C'est pas trop dur, non?
Ouais, on se débrouille.
C'est pas facile, hein?
Together, they're hoping to find a solution with the government, which has commercial interests on the banks of the Nile. Authorities didn't respond to our requests for an interview.
We're not against the development of the Nile. We're fully in favor of it. The only problem is that we want to be a part of this development.
If no compromise can be found before the 4th of July, these houses will end up at auction, sold for fractions of their worth.
In Senegal, overfishing, underregulation and pollution have had a disastrous impact on fish stock. An environmentalist in Dakar has built an underwater museum that is both an exhibition for creativity and a home for marine life to thrive. Sam Bradpeace and Ellie Mandau report.
Africa's first underwater museum is open for business. After a briefing from the diving instructors, visitors put on scuba gear and head to the beach. Umi Jiao has never dived before.
I'm excited, but I'm a little scared, but I'm looking forward to it. I was born and raised in this area, and this is like where my people, the original founding fathers of Dakar, were born.
Beneath the surface, 8 concrete artworks have been installed on an otherwise barren part of the seabed, forming an artificial reef. Aquatic plants and algae have since grown on the sculptures, providing food, shelter, and a future breeding ground for fish.
Building some sculpture work, they're like ecologically safe, really can help the rebirth of all the fish and the seafood and so forth, because as you know, Dakar, we have hard time to get fish now. It's very complicated.
The museum is the brainchild of environmentalist Redouane El Ali. He has spent a lifetime fighting to protect this stretch of Senegalese coastline.
When I was little, I saw big fish. When I was younger, I used to catch barracuda here. Now that's over. We want to bring life back to the Bay of Dakar. We will start here and finish with the bay.
The museum is currently calling on artists to submit works to help expand the reef to cover 5 square kilometres and support marine life for generations to come.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks for joining us, and do so again if you can. Till then, take care.
Because a new page of history gets written every day. Because breaking news can't wait. Information everywhere. In all situations. On every subject. Understanding the world. Imagining the world. France 24. A different take on the news.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.